Hi, my name is Richard Dix, and this is How Did That Happen? A podcast where I look at everyday things or events and try to figure out how they came to be. Every week I will research one topic, and by the end of the episode, I hope to truly have the answer to the question, how did that happen? Hello, and welcome to another episode of How Did That Happen? This week we are discussing earwax and Q-tips. They go together like earwax and Q-tips. Come along for the ride this week as I ask, earwax and Q-tips, how did that happen? All right. We're back for another episode this week. This is episode 29. We're doing earwax and Q-tips, and this one, I started just looking into Q-tips, and I think I may even say it later. But it's like once I started, I realized that I don't know. I just that you have to mention earwax. It'd be like it literally is the elephant in the room if I do a whole podcast on Q-tips and don't mention earwax. So I decided to look into that too and find out some beneficial information about what's going on in your ears, and so I'll share that with you. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I want to thank you guys again for coming back. Always trying to push toward bigger and better things and try to make this podcast a little better every time. I did put out there that I'm thinking about adding some guests, and maybe not. I've had people reach out, and ask. I just haven't been able to find a way organically to fit this in yet, but I'm still thinking about it. I'm not sure if I want to do like experts or if I do like a funny person who has a take on it, or what way this is going to go. But it is something I'm thinking about. Yeah, I guess so. Without further ado, I will give you the podcast. Q-tips were created in 1923 by a Polish man named Leo Gerstenzang, who said that after watching his wife, Ziuta, applying cotton to toothpicks to clean their baby's ears, he had the idea for Q-tips. Whether or not that story is true, who knows, but sounds good. In 1923, he released the first Q-tips with his company, the Leo Gerstenzang Infant Novelty Company, which is a great name for a company. And the original name for Q-tips were baby gaze, like Gays, not like a gaze, like baby is gazing. But they were marketed as such for about 3 years before Gerstenzang added the Q-tips to the name. So they were not originally, but after that they became Q-tips baby gaze, which is a long name for anything. But the Q stands for quality, which I had no idea. So the Q, you look at Q-tips, they're quality tips is what they are. And I never got a square answer on what inspired the gay portion of the name, but my guess is that the babies, would be ecstatic in the aftermath of those supremely cleaned ear canals. So their disposition could be described as nothing other than gay, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, there was nobody who explained what that was or why they did it, but that's my best conclusion. As we know, we've looked at different things. There's always a weird name for these products before they became mainstream famous. As we remember from previous episodes, the first name for cotton candy was Fairy Floss, and people were like with a straight face calling it Fairy Floss for like 20 or 30 years. So Baby Gaze just falls right into that same category. Let's see. Most cotton swabs were made from plastic, but due to the fact that the majority of them get flushed down the toilet, most countries and companies now use a biodegradable product. The original stick was made from wood, and then it shifted to like tightly rolled paper, basically. But like I said, there was a time when they were all made out of plastic, and they basically realized that everyone was just flushing them down the toilet, so it was really like polluting a lot of waterways with these plastic Q-tips. In 1958, Q-tips, the company, or I guess I'm not sure if at the time they were still the infant novelty company or not, but I believe by this time they were just Q-tips. They bought an English company that made paper sticks for confectionery purposes, and they repurposed those sticks for their Q-tips basically. And according to Wikipedia, Q-tips have no accepted medical benefits, which is interesting to hear because they are in so many hospitals and doctors' offices, at least, in the form of like normal cotton swabs. But there are other uses for cotton swabs, Q-tips, if you will, besides just going in people's ears. You can put together model cars with them. You can clean small products. in conjunction with rubbing alcohol. People apply makeup with them, and then you can clean your arts and crafts equipment as well. Um, but since we're talking about the Q-tips, I feel like we have to talk about its partner in crime, the earwax. And so I honestly did not, when I started this episode, I didn't, or when like the research for it, I didn't think that um, I would end up doing any information on earwax. It was because I was looking up Q-tips and they just throw it right in your face as soon as, like, when you go to the Wikipedia page, I'm telling you, you see it. Like, they just kind of, you have to, it's like the elephant in the room. You know what I mean? It'd be like if I did this whole podcast and then did not mention earwax once. So I'm going to do a little more than just mention it once. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you the scientific term for it. And the scientific term for earwax is cerumen. Cerumen, probably a soft C. And never in my life have I ever given thought to the scientific name for earwax or that one even existed. But of course it does. And so, like I said, if you look up the info about Q-tips, they bring it up on the Wikipedia like it's nothing. You can go there and you'll find a giant picture of a waxed up Q-tip. It is huge. I looked that up and it's just like, yeah, we get it. You know what I mean? Like we know what Q-tips do. We don't need a picture of a dirty Q-tip to bring home your point. But yeah, so more about earwax. Like we said, the scientific name for it is cerumen, and earwax is defined as a brown, red, orange, yellowish, or gray waxy substance, right? So many colors in that definition. It is made for the protection of the ear canal, which I didn't know. And it also provides protection from fungi, bacteria, insects, and water. So earwax actually has a purpose. Now, not recently, but I definitely have thought throughout my life, like, why do we have earwax? Because it just seems, because all people ever seem to do is just clean it out or like have problems with it. You know what I mean? It's like the appendix of like the ears or whatever. But you find out that it actually has, a real multiple purposes. I guess it makes me, I don't know. It's kind of cool. It is very common for cotton swabs to create perforated eardrums in the U.S. And so between 1990 and the year 2010, an estimated 263,338 children went to the hospital emergency rooms for cotton swab injuries, and that resulted in an annual hospitalization of over 13,000 children just off the misuse of Q-tips, trying to get that earwax out, trying to get that cerumen out, and which is that's what always has kind of scared me. I had a scare one time, not too long ago. I would say within the last year. And because I would say, and nothing against Q-tips, I've stopped using Q-tips. I haven't used them all my life, but I would say in my 20s I used them a lot, quite a bit. I didn't really use them in high school or anything like that, but now because of the scare, which I will share with you, I've been like, you know what, I'm good. So it's interesting to hear that number about all the the perforated eardrums, because it's like it's not always the best to be just jamming stuff in your ear. But yeah, allow me to explain. So I was getting out of the shower one morning, and I put what I thought was a fully functional Q-tip in my ear, right? And then when I removed it, there was no Q, if you will. There was no Q, just the tip, right? No cotton end. And I lost my mind, just right there, just lost it, couldn't find it. And I thought I had lost the end in my ear, and I had no plan, right? And then I looked at it and had other people look in my ear, and there was nothing, right? And so then I surmised that there must have never been a Q on that tip. And if you tell me differently, I'm just going to cut my ears and hum, because I don't want to believe that there's just a Q floating around in my ear canal. But I honestly don't think there was. And that's what kind of calmed me down. Because I think I looked in the jar that we keep them in, and saw that there was other ones that kind of looked like that. And I was like, oh, okay, I kind of put two and two together. Because I didn't feel anything also, and no one saw anything. So I was just like, well, I can stop freaking out. But the fear that I had in that moment, like when I pulled it out of my ear and saw no Q on the end of that tip, it was enough to, like, I don't know. I guess it's like if you had a real scare from like doing drugs or something or alcohol, and you were like, oh, never again. It was like I saw that and I was like, because I had no idea what I was gonna do. Am I gonna go to the hospital now? Is this just gonna be in my ear for the rest of my life? Like, what is it? And I had no answers. And because of that, I was like, I'll just use a washcloth from here on out, because you've already been shown. It's like you don't know what's going on. That fear was real. It was palpable. But yeah, so that's why I don't use Q-tips. A little bit of a tangent, if you will, but we'll get back on this Q-tip and earwax train. because there's still a little bit more to share. Let's see. There are two different types of earwax, which also I did not know. There's wet, which is dominant, and dry, which is recessive. So who knew that earwax, just like every other characteristic in our body, is decided by genetics? I honestly did not know. And so they're different depending on where you're at. Also, could kind of depend on what your earwax feels like. So East Asians, Southeast Asians, and Native Americans are more likely to have the dry type of earwax, gray and flaky, while African and European people are more likely to have the wet type of earwax, which is the honey brown, dark orange to dark brown, and moist. The fact that anybody describes earwax as honey brown is disgusting, but that's what I just did. I did not know that earwax comes as gray and flaky. I never knew that until I looked this up. I've never seen it in my life. I mean, it's on the internet, so now I've seen it, but never have I come across somebody with legit gray and flaky earwax. If that stuff came out of my ear, and I'm not shading anybody with I would probably freak out because I've never seen it before. You know what I mean? I'd be like, it'd be like gray hairs, or like, am I getting old? Or is my earwax getting old? Am I about to lose my hearing? I don't know. So yeah, put it in the comments on Twitter if you got that gray and flaky earwax though. I'm trying to find out. A specific gene has been identified that determines whether people have wet or dry earwax, and the difference in cerumen type has been tracked to a single base change. The gene is known as ATP binding cassette C11. So we can all walk away from this having learned that. Earwax grows at about the same rate as fingernails. Another interesting fact. It originates in the middle of the ear canal, and it works its way to the outer part of your ear by way of your jaw movements. And having ears that produce too much earwax is called having an impacted cerumen. And I had never really heard of this until I was talking to a coworker about this episode that I was doing. I was telling him about the earwax and stuff like that, and he shared his earwax journey, and told me that he makes too much earwax, which is something that you don't expect somebody to say. And I'll be honest, I believe I did laugh right after he said that, and I apologize. But people catch you off guard with some stuff like that. I did not expect him to say that. But that's, so he suffered from that, and it got so bad that he could not hear out of his right ear. And that's what prompted him to go to the doctor. And yeah, now he has to take eardrops. Honestly, I think it was eardrops is what I laughed at, not the fact that he made too much earwax. When he told me eardrops, I'd never heard of I don't know much about earwax, as we're finding out on this podcast, but I never knew people were doing eardrops. I didn't know. I know eye drops, right? I know you can drop some things in some other places too, but I didn't like eardrops. Yeah. But, so yeah, I just did not know that eardrops existed. And that's probably really about it as far as like how Q-tips actually happen. Like I've mentioned multiple times, I think on this podcast, is that this isn't really about tracking the trajectory of these products, so much as it is just being like, well, we lived in a world, before there were Q-tips, and now we live in a world where there are Q-tips. How did that happen? And we find out that it comes from a guy from Poland who has a really long last name, first name Leo, I do believe, but watching his wife sticking cotton balls on toothpicks, right, and then just shoving them in his baby's ears, and he's like, maybe, just maybe, I can find a better way to do that. And that is how earwax and Q-tips happen. And now it's time for the roundup. And we're going to round it up. Leo Gerstensang creates the first Q-tip in 1923. They were originally called Baby Gaze. 3 years into the production, he adds Q-tip to the name, Q standing for quality. They go on to become the standard in cotton swabs. Earwax is genetic. It comes in a kaleidoscope of colors. It grows as fast as fingernails. Things I didn't know before. And now I know them. Never heard of these things. What are they? So, things I didn't know, which I think I said multiple times during the actual reading off of the topic, that there was a number of things that I didn't know. And so I didn't put them all in here, but there's a couple I had still left over. Mostly it pertains to the earwax, because I was surprised at just how much information there was about earwax, I guess. So let's go ahead and we'll say Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, wrote that earwax, when applied topically, could cure bites from humans, scorpions, and serpents. And it was said to work best when taken from the ears of the wounded person itself. So that's just something that I did not know that was a common thing